Yo, so how is it being one of the highest paid, black media persons right now that's done it his way?
You know, I'm very proud of it because I don't look at this industry the way a lot of cats who have been in the industry look at it. See, when they see y'all, I don't want to speak for everybody, but they know who they are. They view y'all as a threat. You know, you former players, you got this platform. You're not quote unquote polished in terms of what journalism etiquette is and all of this other stuff. And as a result, you're invading other people's territory. I've never looked at it that way. When I was a reporter, I was fighting for cats to get paid. A matter of fact, if you go back and you look at my history, there's a lot of times that no matter how harsh I could be and critical I could be, I actually held off on it until you got paid. Because I want you to get paid first. I was never one of those dudes that would stand in front and center, don't pay them. I was never one of those guys. I wanted people to get paid. So you transition that to this industry itself. I'm very proud of y'all and a whole bunch of other cats that are out here with their platforms. That's why you see me doing these interviews and stuff like that, because I want cats to know I'm not rooting against you.
Right.
I want you to get yours.
Right.
But I do look at myself as an elder in this business, because I came into the business before there were podcasts. I came into the business before there was Instagram and TikTok and all of that stuff. When I came up in the business in March of 2003, when I got named the general sports columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer, at that time, I was the 21st African American in this country's history to get that title. The Wilbons of the world, Mike Wilbons, Bill Rodens, Kevin Blackstones, and others, they had that title. When it happened, people didn't realize this is 2003. Now, this ain't 1973. This is 2003. You understand that you didn't have a license to give your opinion unless you were a columnist. So in order to express your thoughts and perspectives, not just report on the facts, but to give your opinion, you had to be licensed as a general sports columnist or an NBA columnist or an NFL columnist to give your opinion. And in 2003, there were only 20 people in American history who were given that license in sports, even though the vast majority of athletes were African Americans. And so think about that for a second. When you look at it from that standpoint, and then you see all of this happening today where all of us got an opinion and all of us got a voice. Yeah, the advent of technology has assisted in that dramatically, and we get that part. But the point is, people actually care what you have to say and what you have to say. Not just because you're players, but because you have an informed opinion. And to me, I pride myself in being one of the guys that helped open doors like that and make people think about what we could do outside of playing the game itself in terms of speaking on a plethora of issues. And I've always been supportive of it, and that's why I'm so proud of everybody that's doing it.
So 2003 is when you became a writer. When did you?
No, a general sports columnist. I was a beat writer for the Philadelphia 76ers. So that beat writer, when you're a beat writer, you go wherever the team goes, as y'all know. I was a beat writer from 1997 to 2003.
Okay.
2002. 2002, I became an NBA columnist. And 2003, I became a general sports columnist. And the difference is the NBA columnist gets to give his opinion about the NBA. The general columnist gets to give his opinion about all sports.
So when did you get on TV?
ESPN, CNN, SI, they had a thing called CNN, SI, CNN Sports Illustrated. I started out in TV in 1999. 2001, I went to Fox Sports.
Okay.
The good old days.
And then about a year, and they changed it to the Best Damn Sports Show, period. They wanted me to be on there full time. I turned it down because Tom Arnold was on there, the comedian. Mad respect to him. It's just that I knew sitting next to a comedian every day, I wasn't going to be taken seriously, and that would be a death knell. So I was making, what was it, like $75,000 a year working, and Fox Sports came to me and offered me 3 years, 1.5 million or so, and I turned it down because I was like, that's not the long game. If I take this now, I'll never get to a place like ESPN or something like that, because I would have been sitting next to a comedian and they would have thought we were all about jokes. And so instead of doing that, John Sally, they ultimately went to him, but they kept me on as the NBA analyst. And I would do that, and then ultimately ESPN came calling in October of 2003. And that's when I started at ESPN, and everything just took off from there.
So how long did it take you, obviously you're king of sports media right now, but how long did it take you to find your voice, become comfortable being on camera and being able to give takes and deal with the controversy, backlash, deal with athletes obviously coming for you for the things that you have to say?
I've never really viewed myself as somebody who had to find my voice. I've always been me. I mean, if anybody that talks to me, that sits down and raps with me, that get on the phone with me, whatever, I pretty much sound the same all the time. I might sound less loud, but I'm pretty much the same guy. And the reason why is because even though I graduated with a degree in mass communications, you know, I never studied television. So I was writing for the school newspaper and ultimately writing for Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Winston-Salem Journal, New York Daily News as a high school reporter before I went to the Philadelphia Inquirer. So it was always writing. The television came into play when CNNSI auditioned me in their Atlanta studios. I knocked it out of the park. They brought me on the air. That transitioned to Fox Sports and then ultimately ESPN. But it was never about finding a voice because I was like, I'm not trained in terms of being on camera. So know what you're talking about. Be as real and authentic as you can possibly be in expressing yourself and let the chips fall where they may. And lo and behold, you know, the Lord blessed me enough that people loved it and they gravitated towards me. And that was when they gave me the show, quite frankly, a couple of years later. But it was also my work ethic because you signed a deal and you, with ESPN at the time, you signed per appearances. So I was getting paid like $1,000 an appearance for 225 appearances a year. And then the boss, who was at the time Mark Shapiro, who's now the president of William Morris Endeavor, he was the boss of ESPN at the time. And he lost his damn mind because he got a bill for $550,000. And he said, this is $325,000 more than I signed this man for. That makes no sense. How the hell did that happen? And the producers were like, we love him, and he never says no. When we want him on the air, he goes. So they had penciled me in for 225 appearances, but I did 550. And so when I did 550, he was like, when does this dude sleep? And so he saw the numbers, he saw the way people gravitated towards me, he saw me put me on NBA shoot-around is what it was called at the time instead of countdown. And when he put me on NBA shoot-around and stuff like that and the ratings took off and all of that, he said, yo, I'm gonna give this man his own show. And that's how it happened.
So you talk about the grind, but you know, I think a lot of people look at you, we see you all the time. I'm gonna see you on First Take, I'm gonna see you on YouTube, now I'm gonna hear you on the radio, but what's the average day like for Stephen A. Smith and how do you balance all your professional obligations with your personal life?
Well, I think balance is overrated.
Me too.
I think balance is overrated. I think where your heart and your passion lies, that leads you. Like you can have 50% family and 50% work, but if you miserable with your family at this particular moment in time, that 50% ain't something that you need to be having at that particular moment in time. If you miserable at work, that 50% ain't something that you need to have. You got to balance it out. It fluctuates. It's fluid, as I like to say. It's fluid. And so you have to look at it that way. But for me, it's really about getting up every morning. First of all, I go to sleep at night with stuff on my mind about what I want to talk about the next day. I have an idea of what the pulse of the world of sports or anything that I'm doing, where it's at that particular moment in time. That is an advantage that you do have as a journalist. Because as a journalist, you eat, live, and breathe what's relevant, what's percolating right now. What's happening at 3 o'clock? All right, this ain't relevant at 8 o'clock tonight. This ain't relevant the next morning at 7 o'clock. You got to stay on top of it. And so for me, that's something I do naturally all the time. I'm constantly aware of whatever's percolating in the news. And I go to sleep with it on my mind with an idea of what I want to touch on. But then I wake up the next day and say, am I correct? Let me double check. Has something changed? Is the momentum shifted? Is there something else going on that people want to hear about? And that's when I brought up the fact that when you're doing a podcast or a YouTube show, unless you're doing something daily, it becomes a challenge because I might want to do this today. But now, if I don't come back on the air until 2-3 days from now, I got to think about how relevant that is going to be 24, 48, 72 hours from now. When you're doing it daily, nah, not so much. But the daily part is the daily grind because you have to make a commitment. And when you make that commitment to your audience, you got to live up to it. Yep. If your audience expects to see you daily, your ass got to be there daily. Mm-hmm. You can't be somebody that, come watch me daily, and then they see you every now and then. Mm-hmm. That doesn't work. You got to condition the audience to expect whatever it is that they're going to expect from you. And I roll with it with that approach. I wake up every morning, 6:30, getting a little exercise, got my morning meeting at 7:30, formulating the rundown for First Take, studying before I go on the air for First Take, studying, making sure that the rundown for the shows, the other shows that I'm gonna do is in place, go on First Take, get that out the way, make sure I do those other shows, get that out the way. But if I'm in the car, I'm listening to sports and news. If I'm sitting down, I'm reading sports and news. If I'm watching television, I'm watching sports or news. I'm one of those guys that I'm constantly on. There are exceptions, when you with your honey, there's an exception. When you and your children, that's an exception, But for the most part, that's your life.
Yeah, people don't understand like that grind it takes. Mm-hmm. And when I was, starting the podcasting game, and when I talked to Dwayne Wade, and he says, treat it like you starting your basketball career, they're not going to respect the athlete of you, so become the journalist. Right? Because they are journalists. They got degrees. They went to school for the job you're going to get because of your name. Mm-hmm. So once I figured that out and I got that information, I started looking at all the tops to see what makes them great. Mm-hmm. And then to realize is the grind behind the scenes of watching, studying. That's why, you guys have lasted so long. So that's what made this show so good, right? You put so much effort and time into it, understanding like personalities, what's moving, what's not, what's hot, what's entertaining, what's not, reading the comments, see, you know what I mean? So, that's what I prided myself on, is becoming a journalist and the entertainer at the same time, and I respect, what made everyone so great. That's why I wanted to know how you started, and the fact that you said you got paid $1,000 and did it Jesus Christ.
550 times.
550.
550 appearances.
In 1 year.
I'm slipping.
And I think that year, he couldn't believe it. I think that year, I was on the air every day but 2 days.
For the entire year?
Yes, I was like 363 days, and I'm sitting there looking at people like, what's the problem? Mm-hmm. It doesn't faze me. And that was when I had to go to a studio. That wasn't once I built the studio in my home. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, once it's in the home, I'm looking at it, I'm like, we got people out here, look at the median salary that exists in the United States of America. You got cats struggling to make $60,000 a year, And so you gotta look at things from a practical perspective sometimes, because that's what the audience does. They look at their lives and they look at us as being at an elevated level. And rightfully so, because we're making the kind of money that the average person in America won't make. And so when you look at the fact that the average person is struggling to make ends meet, struggling to pay their rent, their mortgage, food on the table, basic shit that we grew up with that we had to overcome in order to get to the places that we are, what possible excuse can you have if you doing television and they call you and we need you to come on the air for 15 minutes? Mm-hmm. Well, what's the problem? How is that really a challenge? I know cats who will remain nameless that have lost their jobs in our business because they were assholes to producers and stuff like that, who were calling them, yo, man, I need you for SportsCenter. I need you for this show. I need you for that shit. Nah, I ain't got time for that. The greatest, I remember my former boss, his name was John Wildtack. He was the former executive VP at ESPN. He's now the AD at Syracuse. And he asked me to come there and give a speech to the Syracuse football team about 3 or 4 years ago or so. And it was one of the proudest moments that I had, not giving the speech, because I do that all the time, but what he said in his introduction. He had been in the business for 35 years. And he said, this young man that I'm about to introduce you to is the only person that I ever had to make take vacation. He said he doesn't stop. Years ago when Dwight Howard was leaving the Lakers to go to Houston And people couldn't believe it because I was on Sports Center from an undisclosed tropical location. In this particular instance, it was St. Thomas.
Okay.
I was on a boat going from St. Thomas to St. John's. And Dwight Howard had called me because the story, he was like, they talking about, I'm not going to Houston. I'm leaving for Houston. Go ahead, let them know, And he said, tell them I told you. And I was on the phone in the ocean. I don't know how I kept the signal, but from St. Thomas to St. John's is a 15-minute boat ride. And I was going to Trunk Bay, and I was on Sports Center. And they're like, what the hell are you doing? You're supposed to be on vacation. Dwight Howard called, plain and simple. It's like you got a job to do, you got a job to do. Certainly, you don't want to have your time and stuff like that, but shit, the audience don't care about that. The audience wants to know what it wants to know. And if you're the person that has that kind of access and you have that kind of information and they want to hear from you, are you going to fulfill that obligation or are you not? It's like a player. In a roundabout way, it's what enables me to hold players accountable. Because if you playing ball, right, are you in shape? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? Because when it comes to my job, I'm going to make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm looking at you and saying, that's the job you volunteered for. I'm not judging you against me or somebody else. I'm judging you against your industry, your contemporaries, about a job you volunteered for. This is what you said you wanted. Are you doing what you're supposed to do to maximize your potential? When I cover a sport, that's how I cover it. And I don't define success for somebody else. I let them define it. And then I say to them, okay, so we gonna see if you living up to it. Because you said, boom, boom, boom. And that's how you approach it.
So two more questions for you. Now you got to take off soon, but what advice would you give to someone who wants to be the next Stephen A?
Be ready to put in the work, and don't get caught up in the sizzle if you're not gonna be caught up in the grind. I grind all the time. I'm always working, for better or worse. I'm not lazy, and I don't like lazy people around me. You got to be about the work. You got to have people. It could be y'all or anybody else talking about me. It can never be he ain't working. That's not a good thing to be said about you. And I think people need to understand that. A lot of times they look at, they see you on the air. They don't realize all the studying that you did before you got on the air. I got games to watch. I got articles to read. I got commentary to study and think back and perspectives to explore and to decide what I want to talk about, what I don't want to talk about. And I have to do this every day. And you also got to have thick skin and understand and be adult enough to decipher the difference of somebody constructively criticizing what you said and somebody criticizing you. If somebody's criticizing what you said no, I don't agree with that. I don't know what the hell he was thinking about. Here's why. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now, if they decide he ain't shit, I don't like him. But whoa, where'd that come from? It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. As long as because you feed dialogues. I know that I can be clickbait. So I know folks are going to talk about me. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. What I care about is if you're lying on purpose and you're getting personal. Those are the things. If you ain't lying and you're not getting personal, I'm fine. It's like, please, you got do you. And if you can't take that, you don't belong in this business.
Thanks.
And you got to know that. You got to be able to take it, not be insulted. You got to be somebody that's going to yeah, man, he got a point. She got a point. I get it. I understand it. That's what adults do. And in this industry now more than ever, it's more important than ever to be an adult because there's so much temptation to get belligerent. There's so much temptation to just lose yourself and to just go at people because, first of all, it can be profitable in certain respects, but also a lot of people just want to unleash and want to say what they have to say or whatever, but it could also get you in trouble because somebody's always watching. Always remember this about business. Business is always looking to do business. And they're always looking for people to do business with. And what you want to do is not minimize your opportunities to do business because you get caught up in bullshit. Because the people that's full of shit want you to get caught up in the bullshit so you could be down at the bottom where they are. And you don't want to get caught up in that. And I try not to.
I tell Gil that every single day.
I know. I've been trying to. I've been trying to
Stay in the house.
I've been trying to stay away from Kwame Brown, man. I just keep pulling it back down there, man. I got my combat boots on though, so I can come back out a little bit sometimes.
And not only that, you gotta have a confidence and a belief in yourself where, especially in the case of Gil, when you talk about Kwame Brown, I mean my God. If anybody could slice and dice him, it's Gil. Why?
Well aware.
I know.
I'm saying just knowing that you can should be enough.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But every now and then, I mean, I can't front. I mean, we've seen me do it. Every now and then somebody get on my nerves. It's like, I waited 10 years, 11 years, 12 years, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm sick and tired. You know, so that happens, but that should be rare. Okay. That should be rare because, you know, you got bigger fish to fry. I know it doesn't matter what I've achieved. To me, I'm after so much more. And so my attitude is I'm just getting started. I'm not stopping. Yeah, I'm not gonna let these cats get in my way. And I remember this happened to me. This is a true story. So it's 2000 and 2005 when the Detroit Pistons were playing the San Antonio Spurs. I was in San Antonio. And I had something tragic happen within my family. And I had just got the news like 2 minutes before I got on SportsCenter. And these people were heckling me, because I had picked San Antonio to lose the series, and they were heckling me big time. And somebody said something to me. And I turned around like, fuck you. And they said, we got him! Because there were ABC executives around me when I did it. That's not good. That's not a good look. But luckily, I had a good enough relationship with the boss that the boss knew what had happened. And he saw me, and he came over to me, and he wrapped his arms around me, and he said, go home. Go home and be with your family. Because he knew I was rattled. You see what I'm saying? Somebody else could have deemed that a fireable offense. Yep. But he didn't do that because he knew what had happened, and I had a close enough relationship with them where that wasn't held against me. But they didn't care. They didn't know, in fairness to the fans, but they didn't care either. If I had got fired that day, nobody's gonna lose sleep over it. You lose this show tomorrow, you lose it, nobody's gonna care. Very few people, that is. You know, I lose my career, they might throw a parade. I know this. So it's like I react to what I want to react to. I react to what I feel compelled to react to if I so choose, but I do so recognizing all the pros and the cons because they're not worth me taking care of what I need to take care of.
So, last question.